Greetings and hallucinations. How are you, my brother?
I'm all right. All right.
I find myself astrally traveling like through the solar system and walking the surface of Mars and kind of climbing up the face on Mars. And a weird thing. At the North Pole of Saturn. There's a big red hexagonal rotating device of some kind, and I find myself bathing in that, going all the way to the center of that planet. It's really pretty wild, but it's some kind of engine. It's generating something. I mean, the cloud cover and all this, but it's generating an energy and a frequency that seems very dominant over the rest of the solar system. It's kind of strange. Watching the stock market slide is also kind of unusual because I've said for years that the stock market is disconnected to reality. Again, the same disconnection to reality that I'm feeling. But that the disconnection of reality is that it's like the better the stock market does, the better Wall Street does, the worse Main Street does. So you're going to be seeing the Fed raising interest rates here, which is very odd because Trump still has, I think, 3 or 4 more people that he has to appoint to the Federal Reserve Board, and he's already appointed the head of the Federal Reserve, and I think the head of the Federal Reserve and one of the members, but he's still got 4 more people to appoint, so I don't know why that's not happening. But they are going to be raising interest rates, and the ruling in Texas, you finally had a judge who stood up on his hind legs and declared Obamacare as being unconstitutional, claiming that the government can't, on the one hand, simply ban the $1,000 penalty, which they were having the IRS enforce, oddly enough, which is what John Roberts, who I've always said from jump that John Roberts is a turncoat, that he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, he's a radical Catholic Opus Dei son of a bitch. He's the one that wouldn't allow a challenge to Obama's presidency based on his citizenship. He's the one that screwed up the oath, actually won me money and helped me with a prediction, because when Obama took the oath in 2009, I told everybody that they were going to find a way to screw up the oath, that there was no way that he, not being a citizen of the United States, would be able to take the Article 6 oath, that he could sign all the documents and become the chief executive officer of the United States, because you don't have to be a citizen to do that.
This call is from a federal prison.
They would find a way to screw up the oath, which, strange enough, was the last time I heard from Tim Humphreys from Sands of Time. He actually called me from the rotunda. He was up on the steps, up in the corner, near Capitol Hill, laughing his head off, saying that he owed me money, like $100 or something, because we made a bet on it. Because he said it's impossible. There's no way that he'll screw up the oath. And the unfortunate part about this is that Brett Kavanaugh is also going to be another one of those wolf in sheep's clothing. I think he's a huge mistake for all the fighting that they did to get this guy on, which was, again, just a show. There's not a dime's worth of difference between Brett Kavanaugh and Merrick Garland, who was the Obama nominee. As a matter of fact, he voted 95% of the time exactly the same as Merrick Garland. So, how is he any different than Obama's nominee? And yet, once again, another radical Catholic Opus Dei Jesuit. And so now that they've declared Obamacare unconstitutional, this is what's sliding in the markets is the pharmaceutical companies who stood to make billions of dollars off this, the insurance companies who stood to make billions of dollars off this, and until they get something new in place, it'll be very interesting to see how it comes down. But the slides in the market have to do with really the economy doing better. It's kind of odd because I missed my original projection some years ago was that the market was going to go to 28,000 before you started seeing a slide. It went to 27 and change, but it didn't get as high as the 28,000 I was expecting until it went down the other side. So I think the old girl might still have some life in her, and I think I think Trump's choice for Attorney General, this guy Barr, William Barr, I think it is, Bill Barr. He's another huge mistake because he's just, every time Trump hires anybody from the old Bush administration, either from Poppy Bush or W. Bush, it's just been a complete disaster. And I don't think Barr is any different. Now, John Huber out of Utah, he's the one that has 470 investigators. He's the one that was told to investigate all things Clinton. He's the one that is standing on top of these 63,322 sealed indictments. They opened one of them in a court in Washington, D.C. that was about the Clinton Foundation, just everything. Oh my God, money laundering, pedophilia, sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. I mean, just on and on and on. And it was a closed session, and there was some kind of complete mayhem and chaos that happened around this closed session of all the stuff that was being exposed. But my big question here is JP, is that I'm really tired of Trump just being such a pussy. I mean, it's just, when is he going to stand up on his hind legs and fight back against these people? He's already lost the Congress, and people were saying, and then you've got QAnon out there, who's finally back on the scene, and he's got the QAnon army every place, but he's finally back on the scene, giving us, hints and clues and all this other stuff, and the limbo bar just keeps getting lowered and lowered, and the goal line just keeps getting moved further and further back as to when they're finally going to pull the trigger on this. Oh, it's going to be December 5th. Oh, it's going to be January 1st. Oh, it's going to be blah, 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 blah. And unfortunately, if Trump's talking about shutting down the government on the 21st, by the way, most of the legislatures have already gone home, there's all kinds of things that we were hoping they were going to pass. The full funding for the border wall, the biggest thing that we've been waiting on here has been prison and sentencing reform. We were guaranteed this by Christmas, and the sentencing reform. I mean, I'm gonna win my case. My whole thing is, again, I have 6 expedited dispository motions that are in. They have not been answered yet by the government. They were put in on November 21st. None of them have been answered by the government, which, in my opinion, means I win. I mean, they just left the field of battle. They haven't done anything. So once those are granted, that should get me out of here. But with the other things here, everybody in this camp, there's no reason for them to be here. It's a debtor's prison, basically, for the IRS. It's for people to be re-educated, I guess. Or for me, they put me in here as a deterrent, specifically to anyone that would question the voluntary income tax system of the United States, which I never did. I never went out there and taught anybody about the 1099 OIDs. I never, ever told anybody not to pay their taxes. They tried to say that I interfered with or somehow impeded the functioning of the entire monolithic bureaucracy of the IRS just by writing them letters, asking them, well, what's going on? What are you guys doing? You can't do certain things without due process. Anyway, so we're just waiting for this other shoe to drop, and it's become kind of ridiculous. It's almost gotten to the point where, we're one of these revaluing people, like Tony Tuesday, talking about the dinar devaluing every Tuesday, and that, we're all going to be rich, and the Zimbabwe Zim is going to be worth, it's going to be revalued at a penny, and I have a $1 trillion Zimbabwean Zim note, which I presume will be worth something at some point. But, I mean, it just gets to the point where you're listening to the alternative media that are telling you that the revalue is going to happen and the gold's going to be found. We're going to go back on the gold standard, and that they're going to arrest all the Congress, and that they're clearing out places in Gitmo and FEMA camps to put all these people away. When? I mean, when? So, I'm all gung-ho on Trump, but I'm a little tired of him just laying down like a punching bag and letting these puddinheads, these morons like Don Lemon, who's the dumbest guy on TV, and puppet boy Cuomo, who only got a job because of who his daddy is, and he's homosexuals like Little Lord Fauntleroy, Anderson Cooper. It's just, I'm sorry, and Don Lemon, who's gay. Oh, I'm sorry, and the woman who runs MSNBC, who's also gay.
This call is from a federal prison.
Oh, but they're the most trusted voices in news. And the other thing I don't understand either is that everybody in here, if CNN didn't have prisons and airports, nobody would be watching this crap. And yet everybody in here watches CNN. And I'm like, do you guys not understand that CNN is doing nothing but that they're the voice of your oppressors, which is something that gets me, just really up. So I'm in kind of this weird dull space. I want to thank everybody out there that's been writing me Christmas cards. It's P.O. Box 24549, Tucson, Arizona, 85734. P.O. Box 24549. It's people's Christmas cards and letters that have been keeping me going. I want to particularly thank Elizabeth Boyer because she's been so wonderful, and she sent me books. She sent me all kinds of books, and of course, Mama Lil Patrick has been wonderful. I've had these amazing angels who have stepped out of nowhere. I mean, people that used to listen to the radio show, and I didn't understand. I think it really touched me in the fact that you and I have both had such an impact on people's lives. I think, and Mr. Rowe, and of course, Steve Travesty and the whole gang. I mean, I didn't realize that you had a global audience of people out there who were loving you and supporting you, and it's just really touched my heart when I'm in this really dark place here. I mean, I just get tired of the fact that dealing with an administrative staff that looks at me like I'm some dangerous monster because I believed in the Constitution, and dealing with these criminals every day that just make me sick, and it's just breaking my heart in so many ways. And I really have nothing that ties me to the United States anymore. And I'm thinking about moving to Canada, or maybe going to Costa Rica, or Eastern Europe, or Asia, or somewhere, because there's really nothing. There's nothing anymore that's tying me down. My heartstrings have been completely broken. My heart's been completely broken, and I just feel this isolation. And I just meditate, and I find myself meditating and going off for hours, traveling to the future as well. So it's very interesting. Let me talk. One other thing too is that I talked a year ago. I was on this program at Goldfish Report, and still trying to get a hold of her, actually, the Goldfish Report people, to talk to them. And I talked about the eclipse cutting across Trump's chart, and I said within a year that you were going to see Trump's closest friends, that they were going to be talking seriously about impeachment. I mean, on the left, they're talking serious about impeachment. I don't think anybody who's serious and knows anything about it, I don't think is really talking about it. But with the Democratic Congress now coming in, they might be able to get an impeachment article through, but which they would never get through the Senate. But I talked about how his closest friends would actually turn on him, that the nature of the eclipse last year as it was going through Leo, and of course, I got arrested at I watched the entire eclipse, and just as the eclipse was ending, as freeze mother effer, and that turned out badly, and but it had to do with taking down kings and governments, and just the fact that France is on fire because this Rothschild New World Order puppet Macron, I think he's finally going down. Finally, and we're finally going to see the ascension of the National Front to people like Marine Le Pen, which would possibly save France. Anything else?
That's it, Sean. We're out of time on the hour and the call. Hang on, but
okay. God bless you,
yeah,
my friend.
and
Just put up my information again for people to.